Basically, in this video, it was a kid who's in like a orphanage, and then he gets picked up by two gay dudes. And basically, the whole message of the video is like, is this the Russia you want? Vote yes.
This is so hardcore, by the way. Like, everyone's been sleeping on this, but this is just like 100% hardcore homophobic tropes. Because like you've got an entire country run by a small team of homophobic oligarchs. Like, this makes it as clear as day why the far right in the US love Russia and love Putin right now. All right, time to talk about Russia.
Kyiv is under new attack this morning. That is video capturing one of the airstrikes on the Ukrainian capital this morning. Ukrainian officials say Russian forces targeted the city with self-destructing drones. Now we have video into us that captures an extraordinary moment. You're going to see an air defense missile firing and then the blast from a drone strike. The drone strikes sent people on the streets scrambling as air defenses rattled over their heads. Ukrainian officials say at least 3 people have been killed. A number of buildings are badly damaged in the aftermath, and some are on fire. So with that, by way of introduction, let's go to senior correspondent Briar Stewart, who is live with us from Dnipro in Ukraine this morning. Tell us more, Briar, any further detail on these drone strikes on the capital today?
Well, in fact, Heather, the strikes actually began late last night. Air raid sirens were in effect really for large parts of the night and into this morning. And what Ukrainian officials say is that there were about 38 drones that targeted all across Ukraine. The majority of those moved toward the capital, Kyiv. And they said that the majority of them were shot down. But obviously the videos that you're playing and the images that we're seeing show just that there was a level of destruction. We know that a high-rise apartment building was hit and that a rescue effort is underway to get people out of the rubble. And, you know, listening to people describe just what it was like to be in the capital and to hear it, I mean, they talked about hearing a sequence of sounds. They talked about the hum of the drones because they are low flying. The sound is very audible for people. Then they talked about how they would hear gunfire. And that's because one of the ways that Ukraine tries to disrupt these drones is that they fire at them with rifles. So you had members of the military, you had officers in the capital on the streets with rifles pointing to the sky trying to shoot them down. And then in many cases we know that there was an explosion.
That's so scary.
Now the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, he spoke a little while earlier.
Could you imagine that? Like, that's like, I understand why in your mind you would try to rationalize this and be like, I'm gonna start trying to shoot them out of the sky, but like, holy fuck, the odds of you succeeding at that are so slim. Like, imagine trying to fire a bullet at a high-speed drone that's looking to crash itself into a building.
Just about how indiscriminate these attacks are. Particularly, this comes just a week after more than 80 missiles were targeted all across Ukraine, and now today you have news of more death. Take a listen.
Here in historical center live unguilty civilians. And what did Russians? They destroyed our country. They destroyed our hometown. It's terror attack. It's the true face of this war.
It's like Luke Skywalker shooting the Death Star. Yeah, except like that succeeded. Your odds of actually successfully shooting down a drone with like a gun on land, I have no idea what the number is, but I can assure you it's incredibly low.
Now, in addition to that high-rise apartment building that was hit, there were structures associated with the power grid that were targeted all across Ukraine, not just in the capital region, but also where I am in Dnipro, because today there are hundreds of villages, small communities that are without power because the power grid has been damaged.
Probably not as high as you think. When he had a good amount of practice, it's like similar to shooting clay pigeons. It is absolutely not. Clay pigeons do not travel at those speeds.
Damaged, and it really doesn't come as a surprise at all. I mean, that's what the strikes were targeting last week. And in fact, Russia's President Vladimir Putin had talked about how there were a number of infrastructure targets that they hadn't hit yet and that they would be doing so over the coming days. And that is what we saw here this morning.
Russian forces, Breyer, it seems, are using this kind of drone strike, or drone rather, to strike those Ukrainian cities, and it seems with more frequency. Can you tell us any more about them?
Well, what Ukraine says is that the drones that Russia has have been purchased by Iran. Iran has denied that. But there has been a lot of attention paid to just how these drones operate and how they're being used. I mean, I spoke with an analyst this morning who said the thing with these drones is that they're relatively cheap to buy and they can be deployed in swarms. So you could basically dispatch a bunch of drones to hit a single target. Now, it's not quite clear that that's how Russia is using them, but
Swarms, man, modern warfare, fucking, it sucks. We're going to have the full-on battles of like those disgusting robot dogs versus the swarms of the drones versus something. It's going to be on full robot battles with just like human casualties in the center of the entire conflict. It fucking sucks.
Obviously, they are sending a number of these up in the sky at one time.
Yeah, the drone wars.
I think the other thing is that analysts are saying is that even though they are low flying, it can be hard for them to be detected, and that's just
the USS kamikaze drones. Oh yeah, I would assume so. I don't think this is unique to Russia in any way.
Because the body of the drone is actually so small and certain air defense systems simply don't detect it, which is why they do rely on members of the military on the street, you know, holding the rifles pointing at the sky. I did speak with an analyst a little earlier this morning. He talked about how, you know, these strikes are really a way to kind of instill fear in the population. Here's some of my interview.
Oh yeah. Targeting civilian targets.
Seeks to
shock and awe.
Keep Ukrainians, and by that I mean Ukrainian citizens, on their toes and inflict as much damage as possible to civilian infrastructure, basically to make Ukrainians' lives miserable.
War crimes.
And I think that really is the question, is just how does the psyche here become affected by all of this? Obviously, after the strikes last week, you know, where people spent hours in the shelters and in the metro stations underground, people were very fearful. But since then, it has been, you know, relatively quiet here, I would say. But then we saw people running to the shelters again this morning. So I do think, you know, when these things happen with a certain level of frequency, you know, we will see people's attitudes adjust, even though people in Ukraine talk about, you know, resiliency and resolve. It is quite something when you're routinely woken up to air raid sirens and the sounds of explosions.
Breyer, thank you again for today. Breyer Stewart, our senior correspondent, who is in Dnipro, Ukraine, for us.
Boy, that is absolutely terrifying.
Hello Blazers, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian. Hi guys, doing stay.
This
Welcome
is
to a
Democracy
brand
Now!,
new video. Finally sitting down to record this. I've been trying to do this for like 4 last days, but I've been just sick as hell. And today I'm quite excited because we're gonna be reacting to some funny Russian propaganda. Yeah guys, I talk about propaganda on this channel all the time, but recently it's only been, you know, very depressing. Today we finally got a goofy and lighthearted one, because today we're gonna be reacting to Russian viral video propaganda. So Russian propaganda comes in a lot of facets. It might be media, television, pro-Russian journalists, or bots spreading the message or whatever, but sometimes Russia actually produces videos that are supposed to be viral in order to basically push a narrative. For example, in 2018, when Russia was conducting a presidential election, the Russian opposition, headed by Alexei Navalny, who was not in prison yet at that time, basically called for boycotting the election because all the candidates were fake and, you know, set up by the governments, and we all knew that Putin will win this election, and of course he did. So the Russian government, as a propaganda to promote the election, made a couple of viral internet videos to make people vote, and this was one of the most popular ones. It's essentially a video that covers like a normal day of a regular Russian guy, and the entire storyline of the video is that his day gets ruined because of the new laws that were passed by the new president that is now in power because nobody went to vote apparently, and now the country is being ran by a complete moron.
The comment over is it has? Yes, it is.
Это что еще за хрен?
Я вообще-то гей на передержке.
Of course, man, Russians are so scared of the gay, eh? This is like the second time we've seen something directly related to, like, well, let's say, the other one is actually terrifying. The other one is like, the new recruits of the Russian military are straight up being told that the enemy is satanic. Yes, that is like Russian training speeches for the military right now. The enemy is satanic. They want to turn your kids gay. They want to send you to LGBTQ pride parades. They want your kids to be trans. Like, it's just straight up like Nazi rhetoric at this point.
Кто?
Ну ты чего? Сегодня по закону любая семья должна брать гея на передержку, тех, которых партнер оставил. Ну, неделя осталась.
Yes. So the new president came in to Russia and was like, hey, by the way, every single Russian now has to have a gay guy live in their house if he got broken up with. Yeah. Hey, don't promise me a good time, Russia. Come on.
Если он никого не найдет себе в пару, тогда тебе придется с ним быть.
Закон есть закон.
Yeah, classic appeal to homophobia, which is something, by the way, you're gonna see a lot in these Russian viral propaganda videos that are being made. A lot of them are based on sexism, homophobia, transphobia. But the reason why I'm even talking about this particular video from 2018 is that there's a particular scene from it that aged very, very well.
Здравия желаю. Здравствуйте. Генерал Бойко. Решили забирать вас.
No. Are they dabbing? They're dabbing. Okay.
В армию.
Какую армию? Мне 52 года.
Отлично. Призывной возраст подняли до 60.
Кто поднял?
Как кто? Президент? Вы же сами за него голосовали.
Да ни за кого я не голосовал. До свидания, дядя.
Yeah, guys, you get what I mean, right? Essentially, the point here is that if you didn't go and vote for Putin in this election, the next president, whoever it's gonna be so terrible that he's gonna change the rules of drafting to the military, and he's gonna draft your ass even if you're like 54 years old, 60 years old, whatever. Of course, once again, something that will never ever happen in Putin's Russia. I just can't. This is just poetry. This is actually this is so good. Anyway, the video that we're gonna be watching today is actually so similar to this, it feels like it was filmed by the same exact people. And before we get to it, another one I want to mention is also in 2020, there was a referendum in Russia regarding the amendments to the constitution. Long story short, Putin, who throughout his career said that he will never amend or change the constitution multiple times.
Оскорбительный, на мой взгляд, для нашей страны и для нашего народа совета поменять конституцию. Мозги им надо поменять, а не конституцию нашу. Мозги.
Decided to change the constitution so that
he's way more animated back in the day. He doesn't make facial expressions like that anymore. You know, like I could actually tell what he was saying based on the inflections of his face. You know, but no, you don't see. He's way more like straight edged.
Basically, he can rule Russia forever. That was basically the main point and the main idea. Of course, it passed, by the way. But also, one of the amendments to the constitution was that apparently it's written down in the new constitution now that marriage is a bond between a man and a woman. So they also made another viral video propaganda for this referendum. And basically, in this video, it was a kid who's in like an orphanage, and then he gets picked up by two gay dudes. And basically, the whole message of the video is like, is this the Russia you want? Vote yes.
This is so hardcore, by the way. Like, everyone's been sleeping on this, but this is just like 100% hardcore homophobic tropes. Because like you've got an entire country run by fucking a small team of homophobic oligarchs.
For the amendments in the constitution, if this should not happen in our country.
Такую Россию ты выберешь. Реши будущее страны.
Like, this makes it as clear as day why the far right in the US love Russia and love Putin right now. This like everyone from, you know, Nick Fuentes across the board, all the white nationalists, all the white supremacists, every single person who's kind of united in the United States right now as being like, we hate gay people, we hate trans people. I mean, yeah, this is your guy, you know? Even the like, not even the far right, but the right-wing conservatives who for the longest time have been like, we have the fucking disgusting they-them army commercials. This is the real commercial in Russia. Look how manly they are. Like, we're doomed. They're gonna crush us.
Голосуй за поправки в Конституцию.
And I mean, go off, I guess. I don't really get the point, though. A kid who would grow up in extreme poverty because orphanages in Russia are just awful would now have parents. I guess that's bad. But yeah, long story short, these viral propaganda videos are made for idiots who have no understanding of politics or anything that's going on in the country, to drive their attention away from the fact that their human rights and their freedom is being crushed, and to just point their attention to something else that's apparently supposed to destroy them, you know, some kind of Western boogeyman, like the LGBT, Western tolerance, or whatever they talk about. And basically, the reason why I wanted to show you those two videos, because what we're gonna be looking at now is a video that was released this month, which is meant to sorta tell the Russian people people that the Western world is terrible and the idea of moving or immigrating to a Western country or America is actually very bad. And the video is very full of homophobia, sexism, racism, transphobia, I mean, you name it, all of it. So without further ado, let's check it out.
We already watched this sequence. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's basically two people on the way to America, and it like does all the tropes. It's basically like, yeah, in America, like you have to give in to the gay agenda, the trans agenda, and then it ends with the cringiest, most racist thing ever, where it's like all these white people have to like literally kneel and stand out of the way of the black passenger because like that's just part of America, is that they have to like show consistent white guilt. Like it was just like it had everything. It was absolutely wild. Probably one of the worst pieces that I've seen.
States of America don't apply, even if they were taking meat away in the United States of America. Literally 1984, by the way. They take away your meat because somebody is vegan in the back. Americans are my biggest demographic on this channel. Guys, please write down in the comments if this has ever happened or will ever happen. And by the way, what does the concept of democracy have to do with veganism? Or like the idea of, you know, you eating meat offending some...
Well, yeah, I haven't seen it before. The link, YouTube, I think Twitter. I retweeted it in Twitter. But the whole idea is like every single element of what is considered to be woke in North America, everything from eating vegan to acknowledging systemic racism and the ramifications of both indigenous genocide and slavery towards black people, the prevalence of pro-LGBTQ plus. All of that stuff is just wrapped into a package of these two Russians traveling to America and then realizing they've made a huge mistake because America has just gone way too woke and it's like the worst possible society, and they end up jumping out of the plane. That's the end of the bit, is they jump out of the plane rather than go to America, where you have to kneel before black people to show that you are sad and show reparations.
Everybody else, because that's the idea here, right? What does that have to do with democracy? You guys are fucking insane. Who the fuck writes this? Honestly, to me, it feels like the majority of the people who actually used to write, like, most of the motherfuckers who come up and, you know, write these sketches, ideas for these propaganda videos and everything, those who were good at it probably left Russia after the mobilization started or some shit. So now they're just left with this garbage. Which doesn't even make fucking sense. And guys, the funniest thing is, right, I'm not an America dick rider. America is a country with a lot of problems, and I realize that. You know, I think when I was like 17, 18, I used to think America was perfect and Russia is terrible. Now I realize America has a lot of problems. But this, it's not a way to criticize America at all. You're just making no fucking sense because you've clearly never fucking been there, and you work at a shitty job at some fucking Kremlin troll factory pushing this garbage out for dumbasses who have no discernible skills in processing or understanding information. I mean, it's just pathetic, honestly. Oh no, oh no. I know it's about to get very racist. I just know it's about to get very racist.
Yeah, it's true.
What do you want?
В очередь вставь в туалет.
I want to go to the toilet.
Простите, мистер, что случилось?
Да вот парень без очереди лезет тут.
И что? Вы не хотите его пропустить?
Я?
Конечно, конечно. Его надо пропустить. Мы подождем.
Его народ долгие годы терпел притеснение белых. Мы перед всеми афроамериканцами в долгу. Простите нас, сэр.
Прошу вас.
Oh my fucking god. I mean, I know what they're trying to reference here, and this is, once again, this is literally like, this is like far-right propaganda shit. It pretty much is. I understand they're making fun of like the BLM process here and everything, you know, how people would like kneel in front of black.
It was basically every single thing that's possibly and remotely like quote unquote woke. And then they jump out of the plane because they're like, we can't stand this. I would rather die than kneel before a black man. I will die before I kneel. But again, it makes perfect sense why the far right in the US loves fucking Russia right now and want to align with Russia. It's just like, yeah, they're saying the quiet parts out loud. They're not sugarcoating any of this. It's like, hey, by the way, you got to watch out for gay indoctrination. Hey, by the way, you got to watch out because, you know, the LGBTQ, they want to take your kids because they're pedophiles and they want to go have sex with them. Hey, you got to watch out because, you know, woke ideology has gone so far and is so out of control that now white people have to bow and kneel before black people because of all the bad things that every white person ancestors have done. You know, like all this kind of shit. It's like, it's the hyper version of it all.
So yeah, that is the whole video. The idea of the whole video, I guess, is to convince people that moving to another country, America especially, is a terrible idea because let's connect all the dots here. So first of all, you have trans people. You can't eat meat on the plane because you have vegan passages sitting behind you, because that's a real thing that happens. You have to always let black people come first, even if they're in the line behind you, and you have to kneel before them as well, because that's a real thing that happens. And you also can't be outside with a child because there's people who don't like children and who do not want to have children, and you're obstructing their field of view and they find it annoying. So yeah.
So this is all funny, right? This is obviously, it's like, this propaganda is ridiculous, right? But this is way less funny. This is the speech being given to new recruits in the Russian military right now today. And I'll read it out because you might just be listening. All of us are the Spartans of the 21st century. We are the people who don't retreat from our position, not even by 1 meter. Who fights against us? People who say that Satan is their god. Satanists are fighting against us. People who insist that we have to attend LGBT parades. That our children should become some sort of LGBT. That we would have gay parades. I believe that the men here are the very men who under no circumstances would want to see their children in gay parades. We are precisely those men who don't want to see our neighbors, our friends, ourselves as part of their world and their society. That's not who we are. Like, this is Nazi shit. This is just 100% you're vilifying LGBTQ people and turning them into this strange satanic cabal, and that's your enemy? Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know Ukraine was a country of 100% all LGBTQ plus people. Every single one of them. LGBTQ plus Satanists. Every single Ukrainian. That sounds super base. Not gonna lie. You gotta travel to Ukraine at some point when things are a little more calm. But honestly, that kind of rhetoric, being like, this is our enemy. It's people who want to turn your kids gay. It's people who want your kids to be trans. It's people who want you to go to gay parades. It's all fucking, it's Nazi shit. Also, Spartans of the 21st century, hate to break it to you, the Spartans, they did a little bit of gay shit back in the day too. It's actually pretty common to fight in teams of 2 with someone who you would choose also as your lover, and in between, I'm sure some incredible 60-90ing, you would also form a bond with that person, making you a stronger warrior when you went into battle. So there was lots of butt stuff and lots of cocksucking and other stuff like that. It was just part of the everyday, you know. I don't think you want to really label yourself as that as you go into the speech about how you despise gay people and trans people and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.